Hello everyone, it's your favorite West Virginia in space here, and to those that remember back a few years ago, or a couple years ago, I don't know how long it's been, when Disney Zombies first came out, a few people talked about it, and then people just kind of moved on. Yeah, but they got a trilogy. They apparently did relatively well enough that now it's getting its own animated series. Now, I never talked about the trilogy of the movies simply because I never really had much to say about them when they came out, or I wasn't making videos at the time. I can't remember which one. But with the animated series coming out now, I do review things and talk about things now. I thought I'd give my two thoughts on it. Was it good? Was it bad? What's the opinion on it? All that jazz. Well, because I don't think anyone else will, or at least I haven't seen anyone talk about it yet. I don't know if they will or will not. I don't know, but it's gonna be me today. So here are my thoughts and an overview of the series in a way. Now, to do some basic bookkeeping up front, yes, the animated series does in fact follow off of the trilogy, and yes, the shorts are canon to it, the reanimated shorts. I wasn't sure originally if they were canon, but then one episode explicitly referenced it and the shorts, so yeah, they actually showed a scene from it, so yeah, they're part of the same thing if anyone's curious, but I won't be talking about the shorts too awful much here. And I will say most of the story stuff and some of the writing stuff to the next section, because it needs a whole topic to itself. But to go forward from there, to talk about the characters themselves for just a minute. First of all, the voice acting is actually pretty good. I can't exactly tell if these are the original voice actors or they're just people meant to fill in for them. But either way, they do a very good job. Honestly, it's a good job. I mean, like I said, the writing is, well, a different story, but the actual voice work itself is good. The animation is a bit more hit and miss. Like, the characters move well enough. I don't think it's choppy, but the look is like, I mean, the models themselves kind of look like a Sims model, and I mean, not a particularly good one at that. But it could be worse. They could use a little extra detailing, but the backgrounds are just the backgrounds range from basic, but then you look at the school, which the story insists on being set of 99% of the time being set in the school. It's so bland and so dull, and it's just I can't, these models need texture or something. And I get what they're trying to do. They're very close to doing a one-for-one recreation of how the sets looked in the live-action movies. The problem is the high school didn't look so bland because, yes, it was all clean-cut and had no style to it in a lot of ways, except for the clean-cut style, obviously, with the bright pink and white colors, that kind of whole scheme. But it worked because in real life, there are textures and other things to add character to something. In animation, those don't exist by default. So it just looks off very bland and just, I can't stand it. And then again, the animation art style, really has no style unique to it. It's very matter of fact, a little bit of shading or some, some colors or something I think would have made it look a lot better. But whatever, it's just mostly meh to blah, but it's not the worst. Sound design, fine. I can't really say anything on that, but it's fine. And as far as the characters themselves, they're okay. Outside of the main two, which we're gonna get to, they're just kind of there. I'm gonna be honest with you, the zombie trilogy was never particularly creating deep or fascinating characters, but for the most part, they translate them well enough. There's no, immediate moment I noticed the characters acting weird when they shouldn't, from what I remember from the movies, but that being said, they were not particularly good characters in the live-action movies. They weren't bad, but nothing to write home about. So here, they're not bad, but nothing to write home about. I was originally going to complain that they focused way too much on some characters, but then didn't focus on other ones to the point of why they're in the story. But then the most recent episode that came out actually focused on a lot of those other characters. So ultimately, I'm not going to actually say that complaint because I don't think it's fair. I will continue, though, to say that the whales are kind of underutilized, and that problem has been existing since the third zombie movie and the animated series, and continues that they just feel tacked on in a weird way. But it could be, but not as bad as the other creatures in the thing, which we're getting to. But overall, like I said, the characters just kind of meh. I think the principal is new, but the more I think about it, I think the principal was from, the second movie, I think. But overall, she's, the closest thing the show has to an antagonist, and she doesn't really do a good job at it. I guess it's, the bully guy, but he's way too much neutered as a bad guy to even come closer. He suffered so hard from villain decay. Also, didn't he used to have a whole bunch of allies that would help him out? I thought I remember those. Either way, though, that's my overall talking points. Now I want to get into the writing of the show, which is a whole different deal. Now, I do want to say this, and this affects a lot of things, is that though the anime series does follow off of the trilogy of movies, they actually go backwards in time. I mean, literally, just like they get out of high school, they're about to go to college, essentially, and then the alien character just has them all, like, because they want to relive high school again, senior year, with everyone here, and so they all go back in time, and that's the setup for the show, which actually annoys me a lot because, like, despite the zombie movies never being particularly good, one thing I always liked about them is how the plot kept moving forward. Things kept happening. It kept moving forward, and this just flies in the face of that. You had a trilogy of movies that kept things going, and now we're just resetting it back to a previous point for no discernible reason. And not to mention all the time travel shenanigans, or how like that means that one alien character is so powerful that, bending time is nothing to them. Can all aliens do that? There's so many questions caused by that. It's not even funny. And then we get to another thing, is that there's so many more fantasy or monster creatures running around. Like, yes, I know that each zombie movie added another one. Yes, I know the vampires were in that one not 3D animated short. I think they're coming in the fourth movie if the fourth movie is happening. But, like, each movie, the zombie trilogy was good at introducing one type of creature, so it didn't feel so tacked on. It kind of reminds me of, like, the World of Darkness, where, like, if I told you all the creatures inside the World of Darkness, it would sound like an absolute dump truck and nothing would stand out. But when you read every book individually and get a feel, you understand their place in it. The zombie movies were effectively able to do that. They started with the zombies, then they added the werewolves, then they added aliens, and it was all working out pretty well for them so far. But now in the animated show, there's just blob creatures running around, giant jackalopes, and everything just keeps popping up randomly like it was just there the whole time, and it very much just ends up being a kitchen sink, and not like in a fun way, like any who are you people kind of way. Another thing is that the zombie trilogy movies, they were also generally good with continuity, in the sense that they remembered that the whole incident that created zombies was only about 20-ish years ago, or however long it was, I forget exactly, that zombies have only recently been integrated into society, the werewolves have only just showed up, like all these things were remembered, even if they weren't always well executed. The movies were good about remembering the context of how these events happened. The animated show throws all of this out the window because nobody acts like anything is new at this point, and I feel it's a missed opportunity given a lot of what the show could have been. Granted, the zombies doing a whole allegory for things was never the greatest, as all kind of things like that have a tendency to have issues if you think about them too long, but ultimately, there's a lot of interesting stuff you could have done between the zombies, the werewolves, the now aliens, and humans, how they could all interact given the context and interesting themes that is hard to convey or do in a movie. But with an animated series with potential seasons and tons of episodes, you could totally explore these themes in interesting ways. The actual animated show, though, is far too silly. And I know that sounds weird, but, like, for all it's worth, the zombie movies were capable of serious moments. They were capable of understanding when things got serious. It wasn't all goofball for what it was worth. There were actual moments of pathos, and characters would be relatively consistent. But the animated series just throws out the window. Everyone's a goofball, everyone's silly, nobody really seems to have proper character motivation anymore. And no worse example of this are the two main leads, who I think were named Allison and Zach, but I'm really bad with names. But, you've seen the two. Where in the trilogy of movies, yes, they had Google eyes for each other, that was a big part of the character, but they also had their own goals. They were fleshed out characters who wanted to do their own things and were, actually actively moving to them in their own way. At least in the premise of a high school thing. And even then, they weren't just blindly driven by their passions or their base wants for what that was. They also legitimately good people who tried to do the right thing when they could. They weren't saints or anything, but they were legitimately good people. But the animated show throws all that away because they don't seem to have any real motivation. They don't have any, and even their native goodness is just gone, because once again they were totally fine with resetting time across the planet. And in one episode, Double Trouble, in one of the shorts, they discovered a whole cloning alien spore thing, and all the alien clones want to take over the Earth. Turns out the two aliens were totally okay with not only cloning themselves again using those things, creating evil clones, mind you, but then after they couldn't instantly kill them, although they could have, it just, the fight wasn't just going well, they were perfectly fine with letting 3 of the evil clones just go off to another city where, they could build a giant death ray, and you would definitely not know about the giant death ray until after it blew up the planet, because, that's what heroes do. Seriously, that episode turned them into actual psychopaths, or at least criminally short-sighted. So, despite most of the side characters not being too awful bad, the two main leads are just awful people, like, objectively. Like, why did they think that was a good idea? And then it gets into a slightly related issue, is that the show doesn't have any kind of antagonist. Like, there's no real antagonist for the show, and that's kind of wrong, because yes, the three main movies weren't necessarily built upon, oh, we gotta stop the bad guy, but they, even when, and the antagonists were usually pretty minor for all case and purposes, but the stories themselves were often structured in a way they didn't need, like, a central big bad antagonist all the time, at least not in the traditional sense. But this show does not have episodes well constructed enough to not need an antagonist most of the time, and the show really could have benefited from someone actively opposing the main characters in some way, especially because it would set it outside the generic high school, because everything in this show is more or less generic high school stuff, which when you have a setting with all these different supernatural creatures and all the story and plotline you set up, wasting it on making a generic high school show is a crime. Most of the episodes of this show could have realistically happened in a completely different universe with a completely different characters, not connected to the zombies or the interesting lore that it does have occasionally, but they just wasted it. I've seen this so often where interesting plot lines and characters get wasted by instead turning into slice of life comedy. And, like, that's a crime. If you want to make a slice of life thing, fine, but please do not waste the interesting setting and premise so you can make a slice of life thing. Like, please. And I guess there are some stories that balance it out, but once again, this isn't Gravity Falls we're talking about here. This is not some, like, high-quality show. It's just nowhere near that load to kind of pull off that makes a slice of life and story. But no, they took an interesting set. It was a setting that could have been interesting. It had some interesting elements to it, and wasted it on silly comedy show. And that's the real tragedy of the zombie animated series, is that it's kind of mediocre, but it could have been so good if it was just, I don't know, handled better. I don't know. But ultimately, that's just my thoughts. I would love to hear what you think. Please like, comment, subscribe down below if you enjoy. Dislike and tell me where I'm wrong if you don't. And overall, I will see you all next time. Yeah. Hey, why don't you hit that sub button? You're gonna become a subscribble. Get to see my content quicker. Wouldn't that be nice? I bet so.